I started out this entire channel by building Batman. Then I went ahead and built Superman. So it's time to finish out the big three. We're diving back into DC Comics to build Wonder Woman. Because this is D&D Builds, where we have an outlet to make all sorts of ridiculous Dungeons & Dragons characters and stop driving the people in our lives insane with them. I've gotten a handful of requests for Wonder Woman, so I figure it's finally time to pull the trigger. So let's go ahead and activate that 70s version of what is essentially a magical girl transformation from anime, but the 70s Wonder Woman TV show just handled it a little differently, and go full on Wonder Woman for this build. First things first, we gotta pick a race, and Wonder Woman is the daughter of a god. So that makes it pretty simple. We're gonna go with Aasimar. They're the most closely related to gods, and you get to choose a specific sub-race when you choose Aasimar. So we're gonna go with a Protector Aasimar. Because she is a hero, she tends to protect people. This comes with the feature Radiant Soul. So you can transform for 1 minute, giving you a flying speed of 30 feet, which is definitely gonna be helpful because we had to figure out how to fly somehow. And once on each of your turns, you can deal extra radiant damage to one target when you deal damage to it with an attack or spell. The extra radiant damage is equal to your level. Then when it comes to a background, she does grow up with the Amazons away from most of civilization. So we're going to take the background, Outlander. This gives us skill proficiencies in athletics and survival, and then we get to jump into some stats. Wonder Woman is pretty solid all around, but we only have so many points to dish out, so we want to lean a little more physical than most other places. We'll put 14 points into strength because she is pretty darn strong, 14 points into dexterity because she's pretty nimble, and we are going to need that a little later, and then 14 points into constitution so she can take a few hits. Then when it comes to intelligence, even though she is fairly smart for the most part, we only have so many points to go around, and we need to make sure this build works in a few different ways. So unfortunately, we're going to have to dump intelligence down to 8. Then we're going to take our wisdom, bump it up to 13, and that uses all of our points. So unfortunately, we also have to dump charisma. Then we have a few points from being a Protector Aasimar, and we're going to take the default for what they get, boosting our wisdom by 1 point, bringing it to 14, and taking our charisma and bringing it to a semi-respectable 10. Now it's time to pick a starting class. And I was tempted to focus on the strength and go with a barbarian, maybe a zealot barbarian because of her ties to the gods. But there's a very specific feature that I need to be able to pull off that Wonder Woman can do. She has some very core abilities, so we're gonna go ahead and start with Monk. When you choose Monk, you get proficiency with simple weapons and short swords, and Wonder Woman does use short swords pretty often, but she definitely uses her Lasso of Truth pretty often as well. So we're going to have to figure that out a little later in this build. You also get saving throws in strength and dexterity, and you get to choose 2 skills. We'll grab religion because you definitely know quite a bit about the gods, and just go ahead and follow it up with history because even though we didn't have the intelligence, she does have a lot of book smarts under her belt. Then at first level of monk, you get unarmored defense. So when you're not wearing any armor or using a shield, your armor class equals 10 plus your dexterity modifier plus your wisdom modifier. Additionally, at first level of monk, you get martial arts. So now you can use strength or dexterity for your attack and damage rolls for unarmed strikes, as well as for your monk weapons. And that's pretty helpful because you do plenty of punching, and you can do a bit more damage with those punches, dealing a d4 for your unarmed strikes. This damage gets boosted as you level up in monk. And additionally, when you take the attack action on your turn and you hit with an unarmed strike or a monk weapon, you can automatically make 1 more unarmed strike as a bonus action. Then at second level of monk, you get ki. The number of ki points you have is equal to the levels that you have in monk, and you can use them for one of 3 things at this point. You can activate Flurry of Blows, so you can make 2 unarmed strikes as a bonus action instead of just 1. Patient Defense, so you can take the dodge action as a bonus action on your turn. And Step of the Wind, so you can take the disengage or dash action as a bonus action, and your jump distance is doubled for the turn. Additionally, at second level, you get Unarmored Movement, so your speed is increased by 10 feet while you're not wearing armor or wielding a shield. I know there are plenty of instances where Wonder Woman does use a shield, so we will have to play with this a little bit later, but don't worry, we'll come back to that. Then at third level of monk, you get to choose a monastic tradition, otherwise known as a subclass. And we want to make sure we can use that Lasso of Truth. And one way to use additional types of weaponry is by taking the monk subclass, Kensai. When you choose the Way of the Kensai, you get Path of the Kensai. So now you get Kensai weapons. You get to have one melee weapon and one ranged weapon. Many of the Amazons use bows, so that's pretty helpful there. And then when it comes to a melee weapon, you can use any weapon that doesn't have these special or heavy properties. So we're finally going to be able to use that Lasso of Truth and grab a whip. Additionally, from Path of the Kensai, you get Agile Parry. So if you make any sort of unarmed strike and you're holding your Kensai weapon, you can use it to defend yourself against melee weapon attacks, giving you +2 bonus to your armor class until the start of your next turn. Additionally, Path of the Kensai gives you Kensai Shot, so you can use your bonus action on your turn to make your ranged attacks with a Kensai weapon much more deadly. When you do so, any target you hit with a ranged attack using Kensai weapons take an extra 1d4 of damage until the end of the current turn. And then finally, Path of the Kensai gives you Way of the Brush, so you get proficiency with calligrapher supplies and painter supplies. And now that we've sorted out how to use your Lasso of Truth, you also get one very important feature of being a monk at 3rd level, and that's deflect missiles. This was a massive part of why I chose to be a monk in the first place, because you use those bracers to knock away projectiles coming at you pretty rapidly, and we needed a way to pull that off, so deflect missiles is pretty massively why we chose this path. Then once you hit 4th level monk, you get an ability score improvement, and I know Wonder Woman is super strong, but she is also very nimble, and monks are able to do most of their attacks with dexterity and not strength. So while I think Wonder Woman would definitely be much more of a powerhouse in the strength department, everything from being a monk is gonna wind up being benefited a bit more from dexterity. So we're gonna go ahead and boost up our dexterity by 2 points. Additionally, at 4th level of monk, you get slow fall, so you can do the superhero landing without taking too much damage. Then at 5th level of monk, you get the all-important extra attack. So now you can attack twice as your action, once as your bonus action by default, or 2 times as your bonus action with Flurry of Blows. Additionally, your martial arts die gets boosted to a 1d6, so you can punch a bit harder, and you get Stunning Strike, which we can play off as you wrapping somebody up in your Lasso of Truth. Then at 6th level of monk, your unarmored movement speed gets boosted from 10 feet to 15 feet, and you get Key Empowered Strikes. So now your unarmed strikes count as magical. Additionally, you get the feature from Way of the Kensai, One with the Blade. So now your Kensai weapons count as magical. So now your Lasso of Truth feels much more accurate because obviously that whip has to be magical because the Lasso of Truth is all glowy and magical and stuff. Additionally, One with the Blade gives you Death Strike. So when you hit a target with a Kensai weapon, you can spend 1 key point to cause the weapon to deal extra damage to the target equal to your martial arts die. But you can only use this feature once on each of your turns. Then at 7th level, we're gonna do a multi-class. And with how closely you're tied to the gods, we're gonna be jumping into Cleric. Multi-classing into Cleric gives us proficiency with light armor, medium armor, and shields, but you have to remember that you're not going to get the benefits of unarmored movement or your unarmored defense if you want to use any of those things. But there are instances where Wonder Woman wears some armor and uses a shield, so you're going to have to weigh what's best for you. When you choose a cleric at 1st level, you get to choose a cleric domain right away. And this ties to what type of god you have a relationship with. And considering your father is Zeus, we're going to take the Tempest domain. This gives us bonus proficiencies with martial weapons and heavy armor. So if you want to wear the fancy gold armor, you can do that. And you get the feature at 1st level, Wrath of the Storm. So you can thunderously rebuke attackers. When a creature within 5 feet of you hits you with an attack, you can use your reaction to cause the creature to make a dexterity saving throw, and the creature takes 2d8 lightning or thunder damage on a failed save, or half as much on a successful save. And I think of this as those moments when Wonder Woman smashes her wrists together and that thunderous boom comes out from her. So it felt insanely fitting. Additionally, when you multi-class into Cleric, you get some spell casting. We'll save most of the spell casting for the end, but being a Tempest Cleric specifically grants you access to some additional spells. But like I said, we're going to save all of that for the end. Then at 2nd level of Cleric, you get access to Channel Divinity, which you can use for Cleric stuff against the undead, but specifically as a Tempest Cleric, you can use the feature Destructive Wrath. So whenever you're dealing any sort of lightning or thunder damage, you can use your Channel Divinity to maximize that damage. So you don't have to even roll any dice. It's just whatever the maximum is. Then at 4th level of Cleric, you get an ability score improvement. So we're going to go ahead and boost up our Wisdom by 2 points because that does help some monk stuff, but it definitely helps all of your Cleric stuff. Then at 5th level of Cleric, you get Destroy Undead. So now you can use that Channel Divinity to immediately wipe out some undead of a certain level. Then at 6th level of Cleric, you can use Channel Divinity twice instead of once, and you get an another feature from the Tempest domain, Thunderous Strike. So when you deal lightning damage to a target that's large or smaller, you can push it up to 10 feet away from you. Then at 7th level of Cleric, you get some stronger spellcasting, and then at 8th level of Cleric, you get another ability score improvement. So let's go ahead and boost up our Dexterity by 2 more points just to help most of our monk-related stuff and our attacking. Additionally, when you use the feature Destroy Undead, you can destroy stronger undead. And finally, you get another feature from being a Tempest Domain Cleric, Divine Strike. So now when you strike an enemy with a weapon, once on each of your turns, you can deal an extra 1d8 thunder damage to the target. And if you take Cleric all the way up to 14th level, the extra damage equals 2d8. Then at 9th level Cleric, you get even stronger spellcasting, and then at 10th level of Cleric, you get Divine Intervention. So if you have to ask a god for help, they might actually listen. You get to roll a d100, and if the number you roll is equal to or lower than your cleric level, you can actually get a god to directly help you out. Of course, the actual amount they help out is up to the Dungeon Master though. Then at 11th level of Cleric, you can destroy even stronger undead, and then at 12th level of Cleric, you get another ability score improvement. So we're going to go ahead and boost up our Wisdom by 2 more points. Then at 13th level of Cleric, you get even stronger spellcasting, and finally at 14th level of Cleric, that Divine Strike gets upgraded, and you can destroy even stronger undead. That brings us to 20th level overall, leaving us with plenty of spells to get through. We're not going to dive into every single one because there's going to be a lot of them, and clerics specifically can change out their spells on any long rest, so we're going to highlight most of the important ones. But if you want the full spell list of how I would load out Wonder Woman, feel free to check out my Patreon, linked in the description down below, where I have access to the character sheets for all of my builds. But as far as the important spells, we gotta start with the cantrips. And the first cantrip I would actually grab is Light. You can cast it on your whip, and then you have the full glowing Lasso of Truth. All the other cantrips, I'll just save for the character sheet. When it comes to first level spells, you automatically get, as being a Tempest Domain Cleric, Fog Cloud, and Thunder Wave. And Thunder Wave is just about slamming your wrists together, making that thunderous boom just like you did with your other abilities. Then, if you want to play up the idea that you have a shield, but you don't want to lose the features of being a monk, you can grab the spell Shield of Faith. This boosts your armor class by 2, just like a normal shield would, but it's a spell that requires concentration, so it's not like wielding an actual physical shield, but you can pretend that it's some sort of shield you got from the Amazons. And then if you want some just general godly power stuff, grab Bless. Then when it comes to second level spells, being a Tempest Cleric automatically grants you Gust of Wind and Shatter, which is another thunder based spell, but we're going to want to follow that up with Hold Person, as if you wrap them up in your Lasso of Truth, and Spiritual Weapon, because even though you physically hold on to the Lasso of Truth, you can do some crazy stuff with it, so might as well play that up a bit with some role playing and Spiritual Weapon. Then another major reason why we wanted to dive into the Cleric spell list is that it's the Lasso of Truth. So we're gonna grab the spell Zone of Truth, forcing a creature to speak the truth, creating a magical zone around you within 15 feet, and until the spell ends, it's super hard for anybody to tell a lie. Then when it comes to third level spells, you get the Tempest Domain Cleric spells Call Lightning and Sleet Storm, and since you're one of the big 3, you are much more of a symbol when it comes to being heroic, so we're gonna grab the spell Beacon of Hope. Then once you hit 4th level spells, you automatically get Control Water and Ice Storm, and since you might need to chat with a god a bit more, we'll also grab Divination and maybe Banishment to banish whatever evil creatures you're fighting back to wherever they came from. Then when it comes to 5th level spells, you automatically get Destructive Wave, which is just another big boom kind of spell, as well as Insect Plague, but I don't really think that one fits very well at all. But I would make sure to grab Holy Weapon, so you can really enchant that Lasso of Truth even more. Then once you get to 6th level spells, I'd probably just grab True Seeing, which you can play up as a bit more of the Lasso of Truth, just allowing you to see through people's illusion. Then there's actually a good amount of choices when it comes to 7th level spells, super godly stuff like Divine Word, Conjure Celestial, or even Temple of the Gods, but you are pretty darn hard to kill. So I would grab the spell Regenerate. This lasts for an hour and it takes a minute to cast, but when you cast it on somebody, they immediately regain 4d8 plus 15 hit points. Then it regains 1 hit point at the start of each of its turns for the entire duration of the spell, which is 1 hour. And considering you're super hard to kill and you have that godly energy surging through you, casting this on yourself makes you pretty much unkillable for that hour, because even if you were to go down in the middle of battle, you'd regain 1 hit point and be right back up. That gets through most of our spells, and if you want the full spell list, feel free to check out my Patreon, linked in the description down below, just like all of these incredible people who get access to all of my character sheets for all of my builds, as well as a few other perks. But especially my player character patrons, Alex, Isabel Walker, Melendez Robinson, Carcat Kitsune, Z13, Bad in Person, Caleb Roan, Yaksha Senpai, The Dino 21, Hilon, and Benjamin. But going above and beyond that is my Dungeon Master level patrons that I actually play D&D with live over on Twitch. But in case you can't catch them, I do try and upload all of them here on YouTube as well. And those Dungeon Master patrons are Cyberciety, Talon Starkey, Daniel Galpin, Michael, Eric Wade, Salvador, GameSteak, Tristan Bennett, Kilo, and Heyo. And I know we've already covered all the spells, but there's one magical item I feel like I have to mention. We talked so much about how you block plenty of stuff with those bracers, so you should probably have the magical item, Bracers of Defense. They work super well with any sort of monk-related stuff because it requires you to not wear armor or a shield, and it gives you +2 bonus to your armor class while you're wearing them. All in all, it just feels very fitting for Wonder Woman. Let me know what you think about this build, whether you think it sucks or you do anything differently. I'd love to hear about it. And if you made it all the way to the end of this video, let me know by hitting that like button, and I'll be here helping you roll at least 3 nat 20s in your next D&D session, especially if you want to deflect tons of projectiles, use a lasso of truth, and be one of the big 3 heroes of the DC universe, playing as Wonder Woman in Dungeons & Dragons.